today's big question: is this viewership number a testament to the growing American interest in soccer, or is this just another example of Americans loving a spectacle? Today's big question is a World Cup question. So I'll remind you guys that World Cup coverage is brought to you by Oakland County FC, celebrating 10 years of Bleeding Purple playing summer soccer in Southeast Michigan in 2026. Tickets to the 2026 season finale on Friday, July 10th are on sale now. Visit Oakland County FC online for more and check out the Instagram for lots of great shoulder coverage. So, record viewership was reported for Wednesday night's game between United States and Bosnia and Herzegovina, 24.4 million, according to Fox, with an additional 9 to 10 million on Telemundo, putting the peak audience over 31 million viewers. But today's big question: is this viewership number a testament to the growing American interest in soccer, or is this just another example of Americans loving a spectacle?
It's a very good question, Rob. I think it's at the heart of this is at the heart of the thing for us as soccer as boosters of the game. Now, and I have a difficult relationship with my feelings around evangelizing soccer and how was it my job as a soccer guy. And obviously, I'm a little bit more engaged than the average person because soccer is my job, in addition to just a thing I like and watch on television and engage with and spend money on. So I don't know if I'm representative, but I do have this thing about I don't need to be the one to spread the word of, like, I don't have to be soccer's PR guy. Like I can just let it be and enjoy the game, and I can do that because in 2026 the sport's not going anywhere. Right. There was a moment, there were a couple of times over the last couple of decades when I was working in soccer where the discourse was, people don't really like soccer and MLS is going to fold and everything is going to go in the toilet and soccer in America is never going to make it. And we've been saying soccer is the sport of the future forever, and it's never actually going to be the sport of the future, et cetera, et cetera. That's not true anymore. Right? Like, regardless of whether or not soccer is number 1, number 2, number 5 on the list of sports we care about as Americans, it's not going anywhere, right? MLS is solid and has built, 25 soccer stadiums in America at this point, right? The NWSL is growing and has built stadiums and is adding teams. We have, again, millions of kids still playing the game. There are now academies attached to a lot of these clubs that are working to develop players because that's sort of like what you do, but it's also a business. Like, it's all right. Like, the game is baked into who we are as Americans, which I think is reflected by this number, right? There's a switch that happened. I don't know when. Maybe you can help me, Rob. At some point, it went from like, oh, soccer's a weird sport that only like suburban kids and foreigners play to, oh yeah, that's just a thing we do. Like, oh, it's just like, I may not care about the NHL at all for 10 months, but you bring me to June or you bring me to May when the playoffs are starting, and suddenly you're like, I'm going to check out the NHL because that's your rhythm as a sports fan in America. Like, how many people care about
like stakes of a game and a spectacle? Yeah.
How raise your hand if you watch any horse racing outside the Kentucky Derby or maybe the Preakness. Like, nobody does in 2026, and yet we still make a big deal about the Kentucky Derby. Right, the hats and the mint juleps and the crowds, and everybody's like, "Oh, can a horse win the Triple Crown this year?" And I'm like, "Do you even know what that is? You don't know what that is." But somebody told you it's important, so you pay attention. Is that where soccer is at this point? Like, every 4 years, just like the Olympics, we suddenly pay attention because it's a big event, or is this reflective of a real depth to soccer's place in American sports?
Well, you're talking about when did that switch happen? And I think that to the same point of being told that it's something that's important is NBC's coverage of the Premier League. The validity that they gave that league and that sport with their production, I think, is really what turned that page. It was, incrementally changing. I had friends that, went from calling me a foot fairy to then watching World Cups. Went from nothing to world.
I never heard that one in my life. Wow, really? Like, I've heard communist sport. I've heard, epithets for homosexuals. Like I've heard bad words around. I've never heard that one.
Oh, buddy, when I moved from England to the United States in 1996, that got thrown out a lot. I was wearing Adidas with 3 stripes. I was wearing Sambas, and everyone else was wearing Nikes and Jordans, and that didn't go over well with us. But it's not a switch, more of a dimmer switch, increasing the power. That's a good
one, yeah.
G there. But yeah, it was increasing. I really do think, though, the watershed moment was the television broadcast. Like anything, it's like people like the horse racing. It's on television. It gets the huge production. And so people were like, well, this production value is put into it. It's been put onto this pedestal in the broadcasting. So it must be important. And I do think in large part because people saw it, they're showing every single game of this league. It's on every single Saturday and Sunday morning. These executives think it's important. These broadcasters think it's important. So
Right.
it must be access. I always felt this way when we're in the dark ages. I always felt that it was access because my college roommates that used the pejorative against me. Then by the time that 06 happened, we were watching every game and playing FIFA, playing the video stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then now I'm getting asked about, weekend games. Like it was that slow progression. And I do think like a dimmer switch, but that watershed moment, 2012, when an NBC took over.
All right. I think that's you can point to that on some level. I also think it's important to point out that that's an Anglo thing. Like that we're talking about no, look, it's largely an English-speaking country, right? But it's not entirely or universally an English-speaking country. And certainly there have been people in this country who have been tied in and care about the sport in very large numbers for a long time who maybe speak Spanish at home, just to bring up, one example and probably the second most spoken language in the country, right? That I think that's important to point out. But of course, there's a mainstream, and that mainstream hinges on English language media. And the fact that soccer has become a thing that is thought of as mainstream is for somebody who played as a kid in the 80s when I had no access to anything except for like myths about Pele, or maybe my friend had an 86 World Cup highlights tape, right? Like that was about it for me. That was the best soccer I was going to see. There were no national team games on television. We were just talking about this because this is obviously part of it. In 1990, so this is prior to 94 when ABC and ESPN had the tournament, and it was much bigger deal because it was happening here, and obviously the time slots were good. Back in 1990, the World Cup was on TNT. That's one of the family of networks owned by Ted Turner, the late now Ted Turner, right? And I was reading something somebody posted on Blue Sky that said TNT would cut away from action 5 times a match for a minute at a time to run commercials just in the middle of the game, right? And I do recall this being a thing, but I haven't thought about it in so long. It's bonkers. Your brain explodes. What are you talking about? You're cutting away from the actual game? What are you, insane? This commentary on their coverage said that they missed multiple goals, including in the quarterfinals, Italy and Argentina playing in a quarterfinal. They miss a goal because they were just showing a picture of the World Cup trophy on the screen. Like they weren't watching. It wasn't split screen. It wasn't like an inset. They were like, hey, here's the World Cup trophy. And they came back and, oh yeah, we missed a goal. That's nuts. That's nuts. Now, I also think it's, though, again, a bit of context, right? The way that a culture adapts to something like this when it's not sort of there from the inception of its sports experience. Like the reason that baseball is our national pastime is because we invented it here and it grew here organically and became a professional thing and, populated the East Coast and then spread west. That's why baseball and football is kind of in the same vein. Did you know that up until the late 70s, early 80s, Rob, the NBA finals were shown on tape delay?
Yeah, the NBA history. Well, I wasn't born in 1978, but I did know that our perception of our age range, our perception of the NBA is much more inflated than its history actually is. Because
Exactly.
if you go before like the Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan era, it was not a main top sport.
It was not. It was Magic Johnson and Larry Bird who helped explode it into the national consciousness, and then obviously Jordan comes around shortly thereafter, and it really does explode, right? We have to keep that in mind as we talk about soccer. Like, we have to keep in mind that this was always going to be a process. And the idea that we were just going to, like, one day turn on the switch as PSU to DCU. It was never going to be a switch. It was going to be a dimmer. It was going to go slowly up. And again, the more the more you show, the more access there is, the more coverage there is, the more serious treatment there is, the more normalized we are to it. And so I think this number is a reflection of that. That it's a reflection of people have just started thinking, yeah, soccer, it's the sport, and sports are fun, and I like sports, and I'll check out this sport. And that could be because, I mean, those numbers, nearly 32 million people watching from 9:45 to 10 p.m. for USA Bosnia Herzegovina. That could be, I really like soccer. It also could be, I kind of like soccer. I don't know a lot about it, but I really like the big event, right? I really like watching the thing where there are 70,000 people in the building cheering for my country like that. But we don't have to like examine it too closely. We can just say it kind of all falls under this idea of soccer's normal now.
Yeah, it's in the zeitgeist, is how I'd describe it. It is amongst just the regular sports. And talking about digging back in history, I of one of the most recent like documentary videos that's came out in the run up to the World Cup is before the World Cup was hosted here in 1994. Soccer was listed in the United States as like the 66th most popular sport in this country, which is wild because they just, I think it was Forbes or The Economist rated it as the third biggest ahead of one of the other big four sports. So that also tells a story in its own right of the huge come up since the last time the World Cup was here.
Yeah, look, and I also, it makes me uncomfortable that we as soccer fans feel the need to validate ourselves by, I don't know, like comparing all the time. Like there was a time when I started my journalism career in soccer where the attendance numbers for MLS were like the number one post you could make on your blog. Like you would get more hits on an attendance post for MLS games than on anything you wrote or talked about, anything else. Because
do you think that was people checking in to see if other people were enjoying it as much as they were?
No, it's people validating their interest in the league by checking the number to see, oh, yeah, it's like, well, I guess kind of what you're saying. You're saying in a roundabout way. But yeah, it's like that. It's like, I like soccer. How many other people like soccer? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Oh, hey, now I feel better about liking soccer. Right? I feel better about liking MLS because 20,000 people showed up in Portland to watch the Timbers game. Nobody cares anymore. Now, I mean, people will talk about MLS attendance, of course. It's still an important data point in the popularity of the league, and individual teams are selling tickets, and it's still true that a lot of revenue is driven off of ticket sales in MLS rather than TV numbers, which, that's the next frontier for MLS, right? And then we will check MLS ratings. We do talk a lot about how many subscriptions to MLS what season pass were sold before they switched that over to just being an Apple TV element, right? How much did we talk about that? A lot, right? Because it's that thing about, again, validating, because we feel as like we're avant-garde in soccer. We're the first wave of people. We're not anymore. You and I are too old for that, but I guess we are first wave, but everybody behind us can't possibly be first wave. But that thing about, like, again, comparison. Now, here's the thing from Soccer America about the TV numbers for Bosnia. A comparison. The 2026 NBA Finals, which just ended with the Knicks and the Spurs. One of the most talked about things in sports that I can remember in a very long time, because it was the Knicks, right? That averaged 20.6 million viewers. That was the most watched NBA since 98. That's how big that was for the NBA. And they averaged 20.6 million. Now, averaged across 5 games, right? Not one game was 20.6, but averaged. The World Series in 2025 between the Dodgers and Blue Jays averaged 16.1. That was the biggest number since 2017. I don't remember how many games that series went, 6 or 7. So is that indicative of soccer being more popular? Because that's the implication, right? Like, the USA Bosnia game got a bigger number, therefore soccer is more popular than these very established American sports. And I don't know that that's the right way to think about it. I think you have to kind of mediate the hyperbole a bit and say, what is this? What are we seeing here? Well, we're seeing just a general rise in the water level in terms of where soccer sits in American sports as a product. And this is unique, right? Because the U.S. flag won't be draped over those MLS games when people maybe tune in or maybe consider buying a subscription, right? It's going to be you're going to interact with that very differently than you do with this, right? And I'm not saying it can't be a big boost to soccer. I just think, and we shouldn't be upset, or we shouldn't be critical, or we shouldn't be taking shots at all the powers that be if it doesn't translate one for one.
And it's great to see towns that aren't necessarily known for these soccer meetups. We know about the Seattles and the Kansas Cities and a couple other hot spots for soccer. But even here in Metro Detroit, Campus Martius, which is like the main square downtown Detroit, people gathered in for a watch party. And you don't really see the national team doesn't really come in here. But yes, thank you. I wanted to bring this in too. Paul in Pontiac, great point here. Oh, this isn't the exact comment I was thinking of. Saw fans always interested in where the group is headed. Watching attendance numbers is an easy way to assess group accept. But I also want to bring in Paul and Pontiac's comment about the big three sports historically are falling behind, possibly by the prop bet gambling, fans drifting towards soccer's new entertainment sport. And I think to your point, Paul, thanks for tuning in today, is that the stakes of the traditional big American sports have been lessened and lessened. People see that there's only a few teams truly going hell to leather to win every year, and a lot of teams cruising. And the fact that the pro-rel concept has been dropped into the larger understanding has helped people kind of realize, like, it doesn't have to be like that, where like so many teams and so many cities of fans, their team is not in the mix at all, especially in baseball and basketball. There's so many teams that are irrelevant, and in the betting doesn't help either.
No, I don't know. I can't speak to how the betting is impacting all of that. I do know betting has affected everything, and it doesn't feel like people are always interacting with sports the same way we used to. Like, I've never been a I have friends that were gambling before it was legalized in the way it is now, and it always felt weird to me. Like, I understand it creates stakes that now your interest, but I was like, I'm just watching because I like watching the games, and I find a reason. I was the kid, again, like I talk about this, who would get up and watch the watch the noon kickoffs East Coast and stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning to watch Hawaii play in college football, because I just loved college football that much. And it was the pageantry of it and the passion of it. And I think that's the same thing that leads me to be such a big soccer fan, that I see that connection that the people have, the people who support these teams, who go out and fill the stadiums. I see that same sort of connection, right? And we were talking about this too. And you and I could do 3 hours on this topic, but that, there is this idea of bringing some college sports traditions into our soccer support for our national team in particular. And I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that. That is a way to use our already established American support styles and bring that to soccer, rather than sort of examining this and going, well, we don't do it like Eastern Europe, or we don't do it like the English, which I always think is very dumb. And so I'm okay with that. But there's that thing about, like, is your connection to the sport sort of that emotional one rather than an intellectual one? Because I think when you're gambling, it's an intellectual connection, right? And if you are watching the news, and we have more access to any of this stuff than we've ever had in history, then you can see, oh, that team is tanking for a draft pick, and there's really clear evidence, and we're seeing all the reports. Or, yeah, that owner isn't interested in spending money, right? He's a billionaire making excuses for why the Trailblazers can't actually spend any money to do X, Y, or Z. Like, and that stuff does dampen our excitement for the teams that we have cared about for a long time. I mean, I can't tell you, even though we had a great run last year, I can't tell you that I feel as close to the Denver Broncos as I did as a kid, in part because now the Walton family owns the team, and it's not as fun. It's just not as fun.
Yeah, the Broncos are the biggest, the wealthiest team in NFL now, right? After all that, I mean, that's a whole huge different change.
But that's the thing. Like, why would I think about this too when we talk about soccer, Rob, and you're a Liverpool fan, so this isn't really part of your experience. Your team generally is going to be in the mix to win something, but when you are a Fulham fan,
I'm also a Peterborough Posh fan, so
okay. Well, maybe this fits more with Peterborough then. this thing of like accepting your plight. Like, we are just going to be like, if Fulham stays in the English Premier League, what a great season we had.
Yeah,
Like the best I can hope for
Job done.
is mid-table success. And it feels very weird, especially as an American, to sort of accept that, right? When you hear that your owner has billions and billions and billions of dollars, and now you are the richest team, how am I supposed to engage with that? Right now, I'm supposed to be like demanding that my owners spend, and of course, but this is the thing about money. Money has a corroding effect, I think, on fandom. Even if you support the biggest clubs, even if your team has the most money, it's a corrosive effect on how our connections work with our teams. Because now, instead of just like, I can be thrilled if we put it together, and I'm just kind of receiving this experience. Now I'm engaging directly with this idea of, well, you have all this money. Why aren't you spending it? Or I don't know. I'd have to flesh this out more and maybe write something on it. But it's the days of being sort of like naive about any of this stuff and therefore able to just root for your team without complication, that's over. That's absolutely over. And we're not putting that genie back in the bottle. But I do kind of lament that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, but there's my side from it. You're talking about being okay with mediocrity or mid-table success in the Premier League as what your lot in life as a Fulham fan is. But both Fulham and Liverpool, you could dig into almost any ownership group, and there's going to be something that is dicey, because as a Liverpool fan, I have to accept the fact that, it's also the owner of the Red Sox, and they're all into different kinds of ways of making money. And then the front of shirt sponsors, Standard Chartered, they had their own corruption issues that kind of got swept away pretty quietly, that they were in the mix of the whole like mortgage crisis in the late aughts. And so, yeah, we all have to parse our way through.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like there was I guess, or when I was a young person, like a kid, I didn't know any different. I didn't understand how sports worked. And obviously sports have changed. So it's not like things aren't different now than they were when I was watching the Broncos go to Super Bowls in the 80s.
It's not just the mill owner who's feeling generous and loves soccer.
Right. But that's the thing. And this is what is lost in English football in particular. And I feel for English football fans, like the club was the club. And you had a board, right? But the club was the business, and it wasn't. And this is why now all the rules are around how much money you can put in, because instead of it being the club is the business, and all you really care about is just doing enough to put a good team on the field and maybe win a title or whatever. Now it's like, well, do you have a billionaire? Oh, you don't have a petrostate behind you? Oh, well, then you're screwed. Like, oh, what are you talking? You can't possibly compete. You don't have Oman bringing money in for your club. Well, then it's over for you. And the same thing, like even in the NFL with all American ownership, it's still the same thing. Like, how billionaire is your billionaire? And if you don't have a billionaire or an super billionaire, you can't win anything. And it's like, that's
well, yeah, it's a great example that Bournemouth had their best ever finish in 6th place, and their owner is just a billionaire.
Just a billion, a regular old billionaire. Right, like
old billionaire.
The thing, I know we're off track here, but the discomfort with Newcastle fans celebrating and putting on costumes, fancy dress, is that what I think they call it over there?
Sure.
When the Saudi interest arose and the club was bought by a petrostate, like the amount of like joy that Newcastle United fans, that the Toon Army felt over being bought by Saudi Arabia, is everything wrong with this. That's everything wrong with it. And I'm not even making the moral judgment about the human rights record of Saudi Arabia. I mean, that's obviously part of it. It's just that Newcastle fans thought their fortunes had changed as a club, not because they were smart and signed the right players or because they developed the local kid from Tyneside into the superstar, but because somebody with a ton of money invested in their club. That's, man, I don't know. It's just wrong.
Yeah, plenty more. Another topic that we could probably go 3 hours on here, but to kind of bring us back to the big question at hand, is the viewership number indicative of Americans' love of the game now, or is it indicative of Americans' love of a spectacle and given the opportunity, a platform to wrap themselves up in the flag and in root for the country. Keep those kind of your thoughts and your answers going in the comments, because I think it's worth discussing, and definitely interested to see. I mean, as the World Cup goes on, we'll probably get more into legacy stuff and what's the lasting impact of the World Cup, and in finding a way to measure, will it be, I think our friend in Pontiac was saying that like the production value of the World Cup and the Premier League puts it on that pedestal, but like the MLS and the USL productions, maybe they need to step up their game to kind of to match that and show that as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fake it till you make it thing. That is really tough because it costs money to do all those things. And again, like we're talking about money, this is why money is important, right? And like, as much as I'm like, oh, this is not the way it should be with Newcastle and millionaire ownership and all that stuff, it's true that in 2026, this is the only way forward, right? The world's connected now. Like everything's visual and everything can be compared. The worst possible thing for any American soccer product is to be compared unfavorably to another available soccer product, right? And you can lean into community connections and local support and representing the people of Albuquerque or Tulsa or whatever. And those things can go a long way. And I think that's obviously the base that you build from. But if you want to take that next step, if you want the league to truly grow into something that is, notable, I guess is the right word. And by the way, growth for the sake of growth is uncomfortable for me sometimes too. So at some point, it's kind of like maybe you're good where you are. Maybe just like to maintain it instead of trying to grow all the time, because that pressure to grow makes decisions that ultimately sometimes submarine the whole project. But yeah, that thing about you kind of have to put on the big show even when you're not at that level yet, so that the people who don't know any better go, oh yeah, this is important. This looks important. It sounds good. As important to Major League Soccer as the quality of their product on the field, and I really believe this, is how many fans are in the building and how they sound when you're watching the game. Like that stuff, Matt, this is why people are attracted to what's happening with the U.S. men's national team on some level. Because, and I know that our guy in Pontiac said this, right? You're being validated in your interest by the size of the crowd and by the boisterous nature, but it's also just that's the show. And who doesn't want to engage with that when everybody is having fun and it's so loud? And this is college football. This is why I think, that culture is so important to all of this.
Yeah, think about it. In a college football stadium, how many people are in there, have no clue what's going on with football, but they love it because the excitement and being in the crowd in general.